your host and the consumer quarterback, Brandon Rhymes.
And yes, another great day here in Tampa Bay in the Gulf Coast region of Florida, serving as your consumer advocate, helping you understand your buying decisions, making you more street smart. You're listening to the Consumer Quarterback Show, powered by the Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams Realty. Also, Livian Coastal Elite is our new real estate brand as well. We got a great lineup for you here today. Brent Shiver on the program. Wild Out Pest, Animal and Pest Control coming up. Also kicking off with criminal defense attorney here in Tampa Bay, Anthony Rickman. We're going to talk about the FTX founder. Latest charges they added on to him was bribery charges, allegedly bribing a Chinese authority with $40 million. We also have the Trump indictment. We're going to discuss that. And the shaman got also released from jail, but over to a halfway house. So some interesting content coming up there. We always like to feature our real estate listings live on air as part of our strategy to maximize the exposure and the profit for our sellers. Maximum exposure leads to more offers, better offers, and a faster closing at the highest list price to sell price ratio in all of Tampa Bay. We got a hot listing here in Tampa, Palm Harbor, that is, at 14 Baywood Drive. This one is a beautiful property, two-story home. You have actually a bay access. You got a private boat ramp at the end of the street where you can have bay access. You can be out in the Gulf of Mexico fishing and enjoying hydro sports out there as well. 14 Baywood Drive, Palm Harbor, just over 2,900 square feet, 4 bedrooms, 3 bath. You got a completely remodeled 3-story home, wood-burning fireplace in the living room, vaulted ceilings, pool and screened-in back porch, waterfront community right here in Tampa Bay, and a great opportunity to own real estate. The owners are open to creative financing type offers as well. Another property that we like is 3058 Mildred Drive. This one's in Palm Harbor as well. We do a lot of farming in that Palm Harbor, Tarpon Springs, Clearwater area as well. This property on Mildred is on Lake Tarpon on a canal. You got a beautiful pool, private boat dock, and you've got bay access to Lake Tarpon. Just shy of 1,400 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, spacious corner lot, fenced-in backyard, open concept with beautiful granite countertops, accents, wood accents on the walls, screened-in pool, beautiful property. You can see all of our real estate listings at platinummvpteam.kw.com.
And yeah, I'm raising my glass to those saving our ass overseas.
That's right. And a quick shout out to our friend Ramin Kazami, Heights Soft Wash. If you need any of your real estate properties pressure washed, driveways, fences, Ramin Kazami, heightssoftwash.com. He does a great job. Great guy, small business owner. Support the local economy by supporting the Consumer Quarterback Show online at consumerqb.com, heightssoftwash.com as well. And you can also hit us up on the consumer hotline, 727-263 3707. Just call or text the hotline. Any questions, any introductions you need. We're going to talk to Anthony Rickman here, criminal defense attorney, in just a moment. But we've also got personal injury attorneys, probate attorneys, family law attorneys, business attorneys, all types of different ways that we can help you here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. Over 50 different categories. So without further ado, Anthony Rickman, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back.
Hey, my pleasure, man. So we got a good lineup here today to talk about. You know, let's kick it off with this FTX. I mean, it's what a fraud this guy was, and he supported a lot of the left policies, the leftist politicians, funneling money, I believe, through Ukraine. But here's a quick story update. U.S. prosecutors added another indictment to the 12 charges already faced by SBF, accusing the FTX co-founder of paying upwards of $40 million to bribe a Chinese government official.
Yeah, so this Chinese corporation held about $1 billion worth of his cryptocurrency, and they were holding it. So according to this new indictment, that he attempted to bribe this company $40 million to release that hold. And what we see now is the federal government coming down on this defendant and coming down on him hard. And it's common in federal case to see this. We'll see an initial indictment. And then as the government gathers more information that they receive as a result of the indictment, as a result of the investigations, we see superseding indictments, additional grand jury charges. In this particular case, this is what we've seen. We know the government has charged him initially, arrested him, held him in custody. He was able to be released. They've charged him additionally with the first superseding indictment, charging with additional charges, bank fraud, for instance, and other charges. And now we see another indictment charging him with bribery. And what this does in a criminal case, and it's not uncommon for the federal government to do it, you know, the more charges you have, the more the deck is stacked against you, the more likely it is the defendant's going to plead to something.
Right.
So when you have these number of charges stacked and you have these additional issues that keep arising for this particular defendant, what you see now is the greater likelihood of him entering a plea to some of these charges. Because look, you can win the battle but lose the war. He goes to trial on one bank fraud. Great, you won that. Now we got you on a bribery.
Right.
Now we got you on this much stronger charges.
Tax evasion or something,
Tax
right?
evasion. So, it's not uncommon that we see this in my practice with the federal government, federal prosecutors, pulling that string. And the more they pull that string, the more charges come out of it.
Right.
And ultimately, at the end of the day, they do it, to get a resolution in the case. And a lot of times in my experience, for instance, if I see something like this coming on, I have a lot of federal work. And if there's a defendant, for instance, who gets a target letter, what that means is that he receives a letter from the government saying, you are the target of a federal investigation. If your listeners receive that letter for whatever reason, it's important to get an attorney now so you don't wind up like this guy.
Right.
So you meet with the federal prosecutors, try and stop it and say, here's where we're at, here's what we have, let me show you why you shouldn't charge him. But if you are going to charge him, let's minimize the conduct. Let's minimize this so we don't see this stacking of the deck, these additional charges.
Right.
A lot of times in federal work, we'll work out a plea agreement prior to an indictment to avoid a circumstance like this. Well, this guy's an anomaly. This guy's a unicorn, right? He is the guy who stole millions of dollars from people, who coerced people or forced them or made them go and invest with him in his company. And we saw what happened. But in traditional cases, they're not like this. When you get that target letter, it's important to call an attorney, to reach out so that we can get involved early. So my firm, so I can get involved early, get with these federal prosecutors to avoid this from happening, from having additional search warrants, having additional work, and potentially resolving the case, minimizing your exposure, therefore minimizing your potential sentence.
Let me ask you this, because you also had names like Tom Brady floated around like he endorsed this. What kind of liability do celebrities have when they're doing endorsements?
Well, look, in this case, this is going to reverberate through the celebrity world, through the system, because these celebrities, people are listen to celebrities for a reason. People hire Tom Brady. They pay Tom Brady millions of dollars to endorse their company. Why? Because people listen to him.
Yep.
Tom Brady's wearing Tom Brady clothing. I'm going to buy Tom Brady clothing.
Yep.
Not because it feels good or fits good, because Tom Brady's doing it.
Yeah.
And the same thing goes here. Tom Brady, is endorsing this company. Therefore, you're putting your name, your image, your likeness, your reputation behind this company. And I think now these celebrities, in fact, there's already celebrities who are being brought into this. There's actors, singers, people who are being brought into this lawsuit and potentially prosecuted because of their endorsement. What did they know? Who did they know? Look, I didn't know what FTX was. I saw MLB. People don't realize that MLB umpires for the last 2 years at least have had FTX on their uniforms. Wow. Okay, these are umpires calling balls and strikes.
Yeah.
And FTX is in everyone's face, and this is what the company really is. So it's very important that when people are celebrities doing their endorsements, that they do their due diligence.
Yeah.
And look at this company, not just what this company's paying them.
Yeah, absolutely. If you just joined us, we're talking with criminal defense attorney here in Tampa Bay, Anthony Rickman, Rickman Law Firm here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. I'm your host, Brandon Rhymes. So we like to talk about these current events, different things happening, and kind of help you understand as a consumer advocate, you have choices out there. And save our hotline number, give us a call. We'd love to put you in touch with our local area expert contributors. Anthony, another thing that you hear a lot, this phrase of you can indict a ham sandwich, right? It's like, where does this come from? But I got a quick clip I'm going to play. This is about the Trump indictment, which I believe is somewhat fizzled out at this point, but we'll see.
Indictment was supposed to come this week. It didn't come.
This is actually
I believe it comes next week.
Discussing
the expression for a prosecutor is you can indict a ham sandwich because the prosecutor controls the entire indictment process. So I'm sure they'll get an indictment. I don't understand why Bragg is putting such emphasis on this case. A person breaks the law. I get it. But on the state side, this is a misdemeanor case. It's really a federal case because he needs it to be a campaign finance fraud case, which is a federal case. And that's what Bragg is going to have to do to get a felony out of this. And also, general caution, you have a cynical public. They don't believe anyone. And when you start to see these prosecutors bringing political cases, it just affirms everybody's cynicism. I don't believe any of this.
Yeah, so it's over and over, especially Trump. I mean, the guy's he's got to be clean as a whistle now, right?
Look, you can indict it in his ham sandwich, but you can also indict a nothing burger.
Yeah,
if they indict him on this
That's
one.
Right,
I mean, let's call it what it is, okay? This case was turned down by the federal government. This allegation against Trump has been out there for a very long period of time. And when you have a prosecutor who's campaigned on the fact that he wants to indict the former president.
Exactly.
Como himself, this is political. People are cynical, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, because they're coming for Trump today.
Yeah.
Okay? Let's say Trump gets in office, and who is he going to come for? It creates such a bad pattern and such a disgusting taste in the people's mouth, who they don't want this guy, this brag, dictating policy. They don't want politically driven prosecutions. And that's what this is. And when you look at it on its face, the government has known about this allegation for years. We know it came up before Trump's last election, which was 6 years ago, right?
Yep.
Where's the statute of limitations?
Exactly.
There's a 2-year statute of limitation in this case. Why are we still even having this conversation? How are they still at the point where they're attempting to indict the former president? And by the way, you can indict a ham sandwich, but they still haven't done it yet.
Right.
We know this grand jury is convened for over a month now. We know that the grand jury hasn't been provided all the information. We know the grand jury hasn't been given everything because it's a one-sided process. And that's the hard thing as a defense attorney dealing with cases that are indicted. Because the grand jury only sees what the government wants them to see.
Yes.
The grand jury only hears the evidence that the government presents. It is not adversarial. Donald Trump's defense attorney, his defense team, isn't there arguing point, counterpoint, cross-examining these witnesses.
Right.
It is not an adversarial process where you have the right to counsel, where you have the right to contest the evidence. In fact, we don't know what happens behind closed doors. We do on this case because one of the crazy grand jurors was going out there saying all sorts of stuff shouldn't have been saying, which in and of itself, draws shade on the whole process.
Yes.
And when you look at this particular grand jury, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, it should scare people.
Yeah.
Because it should scare people that if you have a prosecutor with an axe to grind, with an agenda, that you can take that agenda in front of a grand jury and get an indictment. And look, at the end of the day, Trump may be acquitted. But it doesn't stop the fact that he's having to go through this. No matter who he is, any citizen.
The process.
Going through the process of being under investigation, having a grand jury indictment. Not every citizen is like Donald Trump where it strengthens them. In him, we see the poll numbers. He's expecting to get a bump out of this.
Yeah.
But let's talk about this from a general a citizen.
Yeah.
A person, one of our members of the society who isn't Donald Trump, who now has your life scrutinized by a grand jury, allegations presented to this prosecutor. It's important to have good representation because you have to prepare that case around the anticipation that you're going to be indicted because, like you said, you can indict anybody, a ham sandwich.
Well, I want to talk to you about J6. You got an update on J6, and I also want to talk to you more about just this dual system, or two different rules, sets of rules for thee, but not me. I want to talk to you about that on the flip side of this break. We're going to take a quick break. More with Anthony Rickman, criminal defense attorney right here in Tampa Bay. We're going to talk about the shaman. He just got released from prison, went to a halfway house. J6, I want to ask him about that and some other stories and topics in the news where you see this dual justice system. There's one for the left, one for the right. It's wrong, it's bad, and it's just continuing to get worse, it seems. So we'll see. We'll be right back here. Anthony Rickman on the Consumer Quarterback Show, consumerqb.com.
Call Brandon today at 813-917-1894.
And we're back. Brandon Rhymes here. Consumer Quarterback Show. Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams Realty. My wife Lindsay and I own a top 100 ranked real estate team at Keller Williams, living in Coastal Elite, and the Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams Realty. We like to feature our listings, help our sellers profit more and sell faster. We've got a couple of vacant land properties available here in Tampa Bay. Lots to build on. 12290 101st Street in Largo. This is a great opportunity. We got 5 acres in the heart of Tampa Bay, Largo. Imagine the value here. It's 10 total acres, 5 buildable. You can put 22 single-family homes or up to 43 townhomes on this Pinellas County land. Great opportunity. Right here on 101st Street in Largo. This is a beautiful property. There's 2 parcels side by side on Lake Seminole. Waterfront development opportunity, vacant land for sale right here in Largo, Florida. Another property that we have is 2817 Gulf City Road in Ruskin. This is 23 acres, prime waterfront land on the Little Manatee River with bay access. 23 acres, bay access. Build some townhomes, condos right on this property. Put some boat docks right on the waterway there, and you've got bay access. Beautiful property, great opportunity. $1.69 million. You can see all of our listings at PlatinumMVPTeam.kw.com.
Buy dirt, find one you can't live without.
All right, Anthony Rickman in the house, criminal defense attorney here in Tampa Bay. J6 is a big topic, Anthony, and we've seen just yesterday's show or a couple days ago, we had Captain Will Smith, the Senate confirmation hearings. He was commenting on the FAA, and this guy had no clue about basic stuff. You know, can a plane be this close? Should a plane be this? Just because he's the CEO of one of these other airports. But tell us about this Senate confirmation hearing relating to J6.
Yeah, so if anyone's watched Senate confirmation hearings, they have been some of the questions these judges have been asked and they don't know the answer to is it's extremely troubling, just as a lawyer.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago, there was a Senate confirmation hearing, and they asked one of the potential candidates who's gone through the vetting process, who's been nominated now to be a federal judge, what Article 3 of the Constitution was.
Yeah.
Another one was asked what Article 2 is, and they didn't know the answer. One of the most recent ones that was very troubling, and I think the questioning was related to January 6th.
Yeah.
And in our criminal justice system, we have an open system. And what that means is that the prosecutors have to share evidence with the defense. And
Right.
that includes not just evidence that's good for them.
Right.
It includes exculpatory evidence. That's evidence that is bad for the government's case. There are state of Florida in a state case, the federal government in a federal case is required to provide that evidence under a series of cases, starting with something called Brady versus Washington, the Brady cases. And the Brady cases are one of the bedrock principles, is the bedrock principle basically for our criminal defense world, where it requires the government to turn over exculpatory evidence. And recently there was a confirmation hearing, and one of the senators asked this judge, who's a sitting judge now, they questioned him about his knowledge of Brady, and he said, "Tell me about Brady versus Maryland. What are your feelings on that?" And the senator and this candidate couldn't answer the question. He had no idea what Brady was. He had referred to it as he said, "Oh, I believe it's about gun rights, the Second Amendment, because Brady isn't that guy who was shot?" Well, yeah, it was, but that's not what this particular case is.
Yeah.
And what the Brady line of cases say is that the government has to turn over exculpatory evidence to defense, even if it hurts the government's case.
Right.
To have a federal judicial candidate sitting there asking questions from senators, not knowing what Brady was,
Yeah.
it's a shame. It's a travesty.
It is.
Because this is a potential judge who's going to be on the bench for the rest of his life. Number one, if this judge didn't have the wherewithal or the foresight to, hey, let me read the Constitution.
Yep.
Hey, let me understand what the law is. Let me do a refresher from law school crim pro day one
Yes.
on important things in criminal work, then that's not someone I want on the bench.
Yeah.
He may check certain boxes as it relates to political affiliation, race, age.
Exactly.
But at the end of the day, we want judges, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, we want judges who understand the law, who can determine that law and make rational decisions and follow precedent and the law and know the origin of our law. And unfortunately, a lot of these federal appointments have been political appointments, not necessarily good judicial appointments.
Speaking of these cases and senators talking, here's one of Cruz and Mayorkas. I'm sure you've probably seen a little bit of that here, but here's a quick clip about the southern border and the absurdly, just open border we have.
Is there a crisis at our southern border?
Senator, there is a very significant...
That's a yes or no question.
There's a very significant...
Is there a crisis?
Senator, there's a very significant challenge...
I think your microphone is not on.
There is a very significant challenge that we are facing.
Yes or no,
at the
is
southern
there a
border.
crisis?
I believe I've addressed that question.
So you're
Senator.
refusing to answer?
Senator, there is a very significant challenge, and
Will
we
you
are
answer if there's a crisis?
Therefore, we are dedicating the resources...
Okay, so you're refusing to answer. Well, Secretary Mayorkas, I'll tell you someone who is willing to answer, which is your and President Biden's chief of the Border Patrol in a sworn deposition in July of 2022 when asked, would you agree, Chief Ortiz, that the southern border is currently in crisis? Answer, yes. Notice none of those wiggle words, none of that equivocation. One word, one syllable, yes. Are you willing to speak with the same clarity as Chief Ortiz? Is there a crisis at our southern border, yes or no?
Senator, I'm very proud to work alongside...
So you refuse to answer?
So he goes on and on the same thing. I mean, it's at this point, everybody knows the border's wide open, Anthony.
It's political speak. And,
Yeah.
reminds me of you putting on a witness on the witness stand. You get a detective, and you're asking him a straight question, and he tries to beat around the bush and not answer your question when everyone in that courtroom knows the answer to that question.
Right.
That's what we just heard.
Yeah.
We heard political speak. We heard double speak. We heard this particular individual trying to avoid answering that question. We all know the answer. Yes, there is a crisis at the border. Now, what are you going to do to fix it?
Exactly.
And that's what we as citizens want. Because, look, as a criminal defense attorney, I can see it. Crime comes in from the border. Drugs come in from the border. things, terrorists are potentially coming to the border. I was reading an article the other day, and they were showing a whole bunch of Chinese people walking across the border. Not saying that they're spies or whatever, but we are in we're in a war essentially with China.
Exactly.
Maybe not a conventional war, but they're not our friends.
Yep.
And when you have an open border, it is bringing in crime. It's bringing in drugs. It's bringing in things that we don't need in this particular country. And simply answer the question. But that's what we see in politics. That's where it's got, where people can't answer the question.
Yeah.
People don't want to answer the question, and people want to hide from the truth.
Yeah. And it's a spiritual battle, I believe, too, especially with this Christian school being targeted now, and then the way that the left reacts to it, the absence of coverage by the media from the left. But you hit it on point. We are at war. It's a spiritual war, and anything trans or these types of topics, drag queen, that's praised and glorified, and we got women competing in men's sports, getting athlete of the year, these types of things. 30 seconds back to you, man.
Yeah. Look, these are crazy times, and we live in a time, especially for me as a defense attorney, and we've talked a lot of prosecutions. We've talked about things that happen in law, things that don't happen in law. But understand, anybody can be targeted. Anybody can be arrested. Anyone can be accused of crime, and it doesn't mean that they're guilty. And that goes from Donald Trump to Joe Schmo, who your next door neighbor is.
Yep.
I deal with cases all the time, dealing with people who have been arrested or accused of offenses that they didn't commit.
Yep.
And if you've been arrested, accused, if you have committed it, haven't committed it, just under investigation, call me.
RickmanLawFirm.com.
Anthony Rickman. It's Rickman at theRickmanLawFirm.com. That's my email. My phone number, 813-999-0502. Or TheRickmanLawFirm.com.
TheRickmanLawFirm.com. Thanks, Anthony. Appreciate it. All right, coming back, we got Brent Shiver in the house. Wild Out Animal and Pest Control coming up next here on the Consumer Quarterback Show, ConsumerQB.com.
Hey, I'm Ken Shamrock, and you're here with Consumer Quarterback Show. And I say, Brandon Rhymes, knock out your competition.